Have you ever wondered how one random dinner can completely change a person's life? On the night billionaire Ethan Carter turned 42, he was unexpectedly turned away from the city's most exclusive restaurant. It wasn't because he lacked money or influence. The staff simply had no room for him. Disappointed, he walked into a small family cafe he'd ignored for years. He expected nothing more than a quick meal. Instead, a cheerful little girl looked up, smiled, and said, "Mister, you can sit with us. You look lonely." Those simple words shattered the walls Ethan had spent years building around his heart. He had no idea that accepting one empty chair would lead him to the most meaningful chapter of his life. Ethan quietly entered the cozy cafe, where every table was occupied except one spare chair beside a young mother and her 6-year-old daughter. Before the embarrassed mother could apologize, the little girl happily waved him over again. With no better option, and strangely touched by her kindness, Ethan accepted the invitation, unaware that this ordinary evening was about to become unforgettable. The little girl's mother looked embarrassed and offered Ethan an apologetic smile. "She has a habit of adopting lonely people," she joked softly. Her name was Sarah, a hardworking children's therapist, and her daughter was Emma, whose bright smile could light up any room. Ethan almost refused, but something about their warmth made him pull out the empty chair. As dinner arrived, Emma filled the silence with endless stories about school, her best friend, and the puppy she dreamed of owning one day. Sarah laughed at her daughter's imagination while quietly apologizing for her non-stop chatter. For the first time in months, Ethan found himself laughing without forcing it. He never mentioned that he owned several companies or that the luxury restaurant had just turned him away. To Sarah and Emma, he was simply another stranger sharing dinner. That simple honesty felt refreshing. For once, nobody wanted his money, influence, or business advice. They only wanted him to enjoy a warm meal, and somehow, that meant more than anything he'd experienced in years. When the meal was nearly over, Sarah casually asked Ethan what had brought him there that evening. After a brief pause, he admitted it was his birthday. Emma's eyes grew wide with surprise. "You spent your birthday all alone?" she asked, as if that was the saddest thing she'd ever heard. Before either adult could say another word, Emma jumped off her chair and wrapped her tiny arms around Ethan. "Nobody should be alone on their birthday," she whispered. The unexpected hug caught him completely off guard. It had been years since someone had shown him such genuine affection without expecting anything in return. He gently smiled and thanked her, realizing the emptiness he'd carried for so long suddenly felt a little lighter. As they prepared to leave, Ethan quietly paid the entire bill before Sarah noticed. She tried to protest, but he simply replied, "Thank you for reminding me what a real birthday feels like." Standing outside in the cold night, he watched Sarah and Emma disappear down the street, never imagining that this wouldn't be their last meeting. For the next several days, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about that unexpected dinner. During board meetings, business flights, and even his early morning runs, memories of Emma's innocent laughter kept returning. He told himself it was just a pleasant evening, but deep down, he knew it had become something much more. A week later, on the same evening, he found himself standing outside the little cafe again. He ordered a coffee and quietly waited, unsure if they would even show up. Then the door swung open. Emma spotted him instantly. "Mom! Look, it's the birthday man," she shouted with excitement, making half the cafe turn toward him. Sarah smiled, surprised but genuinely happy to see him. "So, you really came back," she said with a playful grin. "I guess the food wasn't the only thing worth returning for," Ethan admitted. From that night on, their weekly dinners became an unspoken tradition. None of them planned it, yet every Tuesday, they somehow found themselves sharing the same table, slowly becoming an unexpected part of each other's lives. As the weeks passed, Ethan slowly opened up about the life he'd spent hiding behind success. He admitted that his marriage had ended because work had always come first. Sarah didn't judge him or offer empty sympathy. She simply listened, something very few people had ever done. One evening, however, Sarah seemed unusually distracted. She barely touched her coffee, and Ethan noticed the worry she was trying to hide. After Emma wandered off to watch the chef prepare desserts, Sarah quietly confessed the truth. Emma's biological father had suddenly returned after nearly 6 years of silence. He wasn't asking to rebuild a relationship, he was demanding shared custody. The legal notice had arrived only days earlier, leaving Sarah frightened about what might happen next. Ethan listened carefully before speaking. "You don't have to face this alone," he said. Sarah thanked him but insisted she would handle everything herself. Ethan respected her decision, yet that night he quietly contacted a trusted legal expert, not to interfere, but to recommend one of the city's best family attorneys. He decided to help from the background, hoping Sarah would never feel like she owed him anything. The custody case dragged on for months, but Ethan never tried to control the situation. Instead, he stayed beside Sarah and Emma in the quietest ways possible. Every Tuesday evening, they met at the little cafe. Emma would tell funny stories from school, Sarah would slowly relax, and Ethan realized those simple dinners had become the happiest part of his week. One rainy afternoon, Sarah called him unexpectedly. Her voice trembled with relief. "It's over," she whispered. "The judge ruled that Emma will stay with me." Her father was offered supervised visits first, but he refused and walked away. Ethan closed his eyes and smiled. "I'm glad you both are safe." After a brief silence, Sarah asked, "That lawyer you recommended, was that just a coincidence?" Ethan sighed before answering honestly. "No. I asked a friend to help me find the best one. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was trying to take over your life." Sarah stayed quiet for a moment before softly saying, "Maybe next time, just tell me." Some people help because they care, and I'm finally learning to accept that. Spring arrived, and the little cafe felt less like a restaurant and more like home. One Tuesday evening, Emma ran inside carrying a school folder decorated with colorful stickers. She couldn't wait to show Ethan her latest class project. "I drew my family," she announced proudly. Sarah smiled, expecting the usual picture of just the two of them. But when Emma opened the page, both adults froze. There were 3 people holding hands. Emma pointed at the tallest figure. "That's Ethan," she said with complete confidence. "My teacher asked who always shows up for me, so I drew the people who never leave." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Ethan couldn't find the right words. No business award or financial success had ever touched him the way that simple drawing did. On the walk home, Sarah quietly admitted, "You've become part of our lives without either of us noticing." Ethan smiled. Maybe the best things happen when nobody plans them. For the first time in years, the future no longer felt empty, it finally felt like home. A few months later, Ethan celebrated another birthday, but this time, everything was different. There was no reservation at an expensive restaurant, no business meetings, and no lonely walk through the city. Instead, Sarah and Emma surprised him at the same little cafe where their journey had begun. The staff brought out a small homemade cake while everyone sang with genuine smiles. Emma handed Ethan a tiny wrapped box. Inside was a simple keychain engraved with the words, "Family isn't always found. Sometimes, it's chosen." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't an expensive gift, but it became the most valuable thing he had ever received. As they left the cafe together, Emma reached for both of their hands without saying a word. This time, neither Ethan nor Sarah hesitated. Sometimes life changes because of a billion-dollar deal. But sometimes, it changes because one little girl offers a lonely stranger an empty chair. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories every week.